Okay, so I can run that. And this time we get a nice, happy hello world. Declan's concerned because his PyCharm said not to put in that space. And, well, let's see it. I took out the space. Let's run it and see what happens. Perfectly happy. Which is interesting. What happens if I put in lots of spaces? Still perfectly happy. So, it's not worried about spaces. It's called white space, and most programming languages don't care about white space. They just run through and try and figure out where they are depending on the syntax of the language. PyCharm doesn't want spaces. Personally, I find if there's no spaces, I find it harder to read because all the text is just together. Because you don't read a book without spaces between words, so I put in a space. And this is part of what I was talking about earlier in terms of creating code that other people can use as well. This is part of just making it better for people being able to read. That said, later on, we'll talk about times where Python does care about the white space. So it sometimes does and sometimes doesn't. I don't know why, Nicholas, yours is running with a capital P in print. It shouldn't. And as Hubert quite rightly says, it doesn't work for him. I don't know. I'm guessing that's something to do with your setup. We can have a look at that in the lab. Choose the interpreter that goes along with your Python installation and Sumana. Make sure that it's pointing to the right one that you've installed. Nicholas, I don't know what you've set up. If you can just type in the text and it's printed out, I'm not sure that you're in the right place. Later on in the lab, we can have a look at that. Okay, so that's our first line of code. We've typed it in, we've printed it. You'll see Jerry hasn't put in the space either. And it's run in PyCharm. Someone put up earlier the quick run. What was it? Shift F10? I can't remember for PyCharm. In PyCharm, you will have your project over here, your file over here, and your interpreter down here. And it will tell you what file you're running. It will then do it, and then it will finish. Exit code 0 is good. Exit code 0 says finished with no errors. We have quotes around hello world. I've used double quotes. Happy with single quotes too. You don't like the light theme? I prefer it. I find it difficult to work in the dark theme. What if we want to print a number? $542. I'll run it while people tell me why 42. It is the meaning of life, and why is it important to Monty Python? Okay, so I've put 42 in there. What has appeared on the screen? And this is a trick question. Jen's quite right. It's just a string. It's not the number 37. It's the character 37. It's not the number 42. It's the characters 4, followed by the character 2, followed by any other characters that you might want to put in. So it's not a number. It's still a string, and we know it's a string because it's in these quotes. But not surprisingly, Python does cope with numbers too. It's now a number, and that's printed the number. And if you want to get fancy, you can start getting it to do things like adding up numbers. So we know it's a number. 42 plus 42 becomes 84. (42 plus 42 becomes 4242). Someone's asked, can you put a string first and add a number after it? Let's find out. So there's a string 42 plus the number 42. It's not happy. Why do you think it's not happy? Kieran says because we can't add a number to a string. Just quite right. We are trying to mix two different types. We're adding apples and oranges. You can't do it. You can't say I've got 6 apples and 7 oranges. How many do I have? Well, you've still got 6 apples and 7 oranges. You haven't got 13 apples. You just can't do it. Of course, there are times you want to have text with a number. And Mohammed's quite right. That's called concatenation. So we'll put two things together, but not in week 1. So we've done that. We've done that. And like I said earlier, you can have multiple files in PyCharm and they'll be up in your tabs here. I wasn't doing it in PyCharm, of course. And as Nicholas has found out, make sure you run the right one. Otherwise, it gets quite difficult to understand what you're doing. There are also now 2 files in your project folder. So again, make sure you're accessing the right one. I take it back. We will do it in week 1. So we were trying to print 42 plus 42. Mohammed, concatenation isn't the plus, it's the comma. Oops. Going to the right one. So here we've got the text 42 and the number 42, in which case it prints 42, the text, followed by 42, the number. And if we want, we can mix those up. I'm just going to change that to make it clear what's going on there. So some text plus a number, and we can print one after the other. And yes, you can use that with variables as well. And if you don't know what a variable is, don't worry, you will soon enough. Okay, so we can take things, we can put them together, and we can print them out. Who came up with the term concatenate? You really want to go into the etymology of concatenate? It's just what it means. It's a word, and if you want to look it up in the dictionary, feel free. Concatenate does come from the Latin, Chris, you're quite right. Most of our words either come from Latin or Greek, and concatenate comes from the Latin. See, I bet you didn't think you'd come into an introduction to programming and start to come up with the Latin roots of the word concatenate. Okay, so we can have text, we can have numbers, we can print them out together. And if you're following along in PyCharm, it'll look something like this. You'll also find that you've now got multiple files wherever you're storing your data. You remember right at the start, we said where we were going to store our files. Make sure you know where that is. Normally at this point, I would go into a whole big thing about how you need to keep them somewhere that isn't the local machine for when you're moving between labs on campus or you're moving between machines on campus, but yeah, not this year. So make sure you examine your code. Make sure you've got the brackets in the right place and the commas in the right place and the quotes in the right place. It matters. It won't work unless you've got them in the right place. And for debugging purposes, so when you're sitting trying to understand what's wrong with your program, here's what's going to happen. You're going to sit there and you're going to look at the code and you're going to stare at it until your eyes bleed and you won't be able to understand what's wrong. And eventually you're going to ask somebody, and somebody will come over, glance at your code and say you've missed a comma. At which point you will punch the screen, headbutt the keyboard and kick the desk. Sometimes you need to get up and look away. Sometimes it's really important to clear your head. Because you can get far too wrapped up in something. In other words, you're so much that you can't see what's going on. Jen's right, it's something that a tech doesn't do enough of. In fact, it's so important that there are actually techniques to get around it. Anyone know what that is? I know it wasn't a pun. Any particular kind of duck? It is, of course, a rubber duck. And there is a technique called rubber ducking. I'm now worried that Luke thinks it actually is a bear. And I'm really getting worried about Luke. Is anyone else worried about Luke? What you do with rubber ducking is you explain what your code's meant to do. And I don't mean think about it in your head, I mean out loud. You actually say out loud, and I've got a collection of things sitting beside my desk, whether it's a penguin or grommet or a flying spider monkey, and I actually tell them what my problem is. I explain to them what my code is doing, what it's meant to do, and what's going wrong. And the very act of saying it out loud can often lead you to see the problem yourself. So don't be shy. You're sitting in your own room. Speak out loud. Talk to your rubber duck or your picture of a rubber duck that you put up on your screen. Go through the code as if you were explaining it to another person, and quite often you'll get the explanation. Luke's losing it. So be careful with all of the wee bits and pieces that you need. Next week, we'll start thinking about how we get some interaction in our code, how we get people to actually type things in. So there's a few things we need you to do. I want you to install PyCharm. I'm about to show you the labs, so I want you to go through the labs. They're on Teams if you don't have access to Aula. So if you go to General and look at Files, labs in there, and I want you to go through the labs, starting just now. So we're shortly going to stop this one, this team, and we'll move over to the labs team. So install PyCharm, work through the labs, and under no circumstances have another wafer thin mint. Look, Aula is our new VLE, which is under construction. Hopefully you'll hear something about it soon, but I said earlier that I only get access to Aula yesterday about 2:30, and so I don't know how it's going to work. For those of you who don't know why there's no mints, And you're quite right. It was from Monty Python and the Meaning of Life, which is the worst of the Monty Python films and should be the last one that you're going to look at if you look at any of them. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, you never know what you'll see in a programming lecture. No, no questions. Okay, just before we move over to the lab then, a question about will we be creating programs with graphical interfaces using Python? Yes, you will, but not for about 3 months or so. So lab 1 is about installing PyCharm, creating a new project, and someone was asking earlier about the interpreter. Make sure you've installed Python somewhere, and then make sure that's pointed to in Python, in PyCharm, sorry. Going to create a new Hello World file. You're going to create a Hello World program, and you're basically going to recreate the things that I just did. You're basically going to recreate the things that I just did in the lecture. So you've got some examples of things there that you might want to put into your messages. One of them was in the chat earlier. There's some simple arithmetic. So if you think back to what I did, see if you can figure out how to do that. If you can't, maybe ask Google about how you multiply in Python. Okay, so what we're going to do is close down this one. We'll move to the lab 1. We're quite late today because it was the first one and we went through a whole bunch of things. But we'll be in the labs until 1 o'clock if you need some help. But we are going to take a wee break first. So before we do that, does anyone have any last questions here in the lecture before I shut down this one? Declan's asking how long the break is, which is actually a wider question in terms of the labs. So I'm going to take 10 minutes just to go and make a cup of tea. But in general, in the lab, what we're doing, of course, is helping you out. So there's no continued interaction. So what I want you to do in the lab is basically go in, open Teams, but I'm not expecting you to listen in or do anything. I'm expecting you to do the lab and work on that. What we'll be doing is doing the same thing. So we'll be here, we'll be on the team. And if you need a hand, just go into the chat. And what you can do is if you want someone, you can get them by name. So you can say, help, or oops. Okay, so those are the 3 people that are going to be in the lab. not every week, but most weeks. So in the lab, just give them a shout if you need help, and you can go into a private chat and they'll help you out. So it's not so much how long is the break, it's to do with whenever you need help. So we'll be in there, and we're not expecting you to interact all the time, but we'll be there to help if you need it. The lab isn't yet on Aula because we're still struggling with Aula, but if you look at Teams, go to the Introduction to Programming team, go to the General channel. Let's see if I can successfully share this. Okay, so there's the Teams interface. There's the General channel. And if you look in Files, you'll see today's lecture and today's lab. At the moment, I'm not looking for it to be uploaded anywhere, partly because we don't have a VLE for you to upload it to. That may or may not change, but I'll let you know if it does. So as I say, I'm going to take a 10-minute break and then I'll be in the lab to help you out. Any last questions that I haven't got to? Yep, just save them in lieu of uploading. They're very simple just now anyway, so actually, as well as saving them, if you are having trouble, make sure you ask us. Don't think, oh well, I'll get it next week. Ask us, okay? But yeah, just save it just now. It doesn't need to be uploaded. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, in that case, thank you for listening. I'm going to close down the lecture. I'm going to save it, so hopefully you should be able to find it in the Paisley Lectures channel in the next hour or so. So if there's anything you didn't understand, you can go back, and the bits that were successfully recorded will be there, and the bits that I missed won't. Thank you all, and I certainly will enjoy my tea. So thank you for that, and I'll see you over in the lab channel soon.